Hey, that's pretty good. The Raptors defeat the Indiana Pacers 132-131. A game wherein there was, I believe, 26 lead changes. The Raptors were down by 13. They came back. The game was tied 16 different times. You get huge performances all across the map. We get tons of really interesting scheme stuff to talk about that the Raptors did offensively and especially defensively to stop Halliburton. I'm Samson Folk. I am here with Esfandiar Berahani. We'll be joined shortly by Pull Up Trey. I will say, just programming note quickly, I feel okay for everyone who watched the podcast last night. I've been looked after and everything has been going well. Everything is going fine. And to all the people who saw what happened, I took the episode down because it's a tough watch, obviously. So I can talk about it a little bit later at the end of the podcast if anybody is interested. Yes, big takeaways, early stuff. What'd you think?
First of all, glad you're back, buddy. Glad you're rocking with us. Less than 24 hours. You know what I mean? Back in grinding. Love you. Hope you're good. I'm sure everybody in the comments and chats and everything can echo that same sentiment. Man, what a game. Matty D, what a game. It was incredible. I actually that was maybe my favorite game of the year from the Raptors by far. Just, offensive bonanza. Hey, I wish they could score 130 points every single night, Samson. It would be awesome to watch, wouldn't it? Yeah, it would be great. I think overall, like you mentioned, there's a ton of scheme stuff that we can get into. I thought the OG plus Scottie lineups were really nice with the bench. Darko kind of tweaked. Absolutely. Yeah. Darko kind of staggered some of those lineups a little bit differently tonight compared to the Orlando game, which I thought was really interesting. Pascal, obviously, just like sublime in every single way, carving up the defense. I knew this was going to happen, by the way. I'm just saying, the Pacers are such a good matchup for Pascal, for Scottie, guys who are just like big wing type creators. They're just going to dominate against this team because they don't have the wing size, right? That's why they wanted to trade for these type of guys, right?
Even Schroeder, right? Because this Nembhard isn't there. You and I both like Nembhard. A lot of people love Nembhard. People in Indiana love Nembhard. Raptors fans love Nembhard for a lot of reasons, and we know one of them, obviously.
Yeah.
He had a lot of opportunities. Like, Dennis Schroeder is not definitely like the big name from this game, but 26 points on 62% shooting, adds 5 assists. His closeouts, his defense on Buddy Hield late.
Yeah.
I hope you guys were watching him chop steps because Buddy Hield is a guy who's banging triples. He's 12 for 17. He was 7 for 10. He missed his last 2 threes. He gets 31 points. And obviously they put OG on Halliburton. That's a huge deal. But the thing is, like, my God, you put him on this guy, and I can't believe it. He plays such good defense on Hield. It's just like 10 of 16 from the field, 26 points, great defense on Buddy Hield, 5 assists, 6 boards, some unsightly turnovers, of course. Pascal Siakam, maybe the biggest name out of this game, 36 points, 4 assists, maybe could add 7 or 8, a lot of slippery hands on the ball. Scottie Barnes, 20 points, 4 assists, 11 boards, 4 steals, was one of the biggest motivators of the bottom of the Raptors defense working, and just really happy with what they did to throw a lot of different looks at what the Pacers were trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
And my God, even Pirtle, who this wasn't his matchup, I would say,
did a good job.
He played good minutes, and he was, when he could handle the ball, a decent release valve on the inside. Massive Malachi game as well. We've just kind of been like hitting the big notes, but let's talk about the offense. You were tweeting about it a lot, but I'll let you take the lead on this one. And just tell me what you thought for the not beating the Pistons, beating the Pacers and going for 132 in regulation.
Okay. So if we were to contrast this exactly with the Orlando game last night, what happened last night, right? Raptors tried to use their size advantage, if you will. There was no advantage against Orlando because guys like Paolo Banchero, Goga Pitadze, even Franz Wagner, these are like bigger wings that can match their physicality, match their size. Tonight against the Indiana Pacers, that was not the case. There is no Paolo Banchero on the other end. There's no Franz Wagner on the other end. This is very similar to the Mavericks game, if you guys will recall, where there was really no big wing defender type to really be capable of guarding a Pascal Siakam. Siakam in the post tonight, I got to check how many of his points he actually scored in the paint, but it felt like a lot of them. It felt like, yeah, well, let's see, 2, 4, 6, 8, yeah, a lot of his points
Yeah.
in the paint tonight. And I think a lot of that was just, hey, I have this guy on an island. I'm going to take him. And then as the game progresses, when you get those touches to him early, now the help is there. Now
Yep.
they're shadowing him. Now they're throwing a bunch of double teams at him, and then he can involve the rest of his teammates. There was this nice play. OG didn't finish it, but like, he cuts down middle. OG grabs it, tries to go reverse. He misses, but like that's the type of stuff that you're looking for, right?
Yep.
There was, obviously the final possession, the Scottie JV dribble
The
handoff thing,
JV
right?
play, man.
The JV keeper play,
Yep.
that worked because they thought it was going to Pascal. They didn't think it was going to stay with Scottie at all. Both defenders, I think it was Miles Turner and Nawara, I want to believe. I can't remember, but they both went with Pascal. Scottie just easily got to the rim, and that's it right there. I just think when you involve Pascal more often, I don't know how he took 24 shots today, 24 shots.
And he
That's a
left
lot.
like 4 layups on the rim still.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just thought like this is a very clear sign that like against certain matchups, to be fair, you
Yep.
can maximize your offense by just playing run through Pascal, and then everybody else kind of fills in their roles. It was special.
This is another game where like Scottie wasn't featured as part of the offense really for long stretches.
Yeah.
He ends up taking 17 shots because he's really good at, and as he ages and like develops, finding the moments in the game where he can take control and where he should be dominating and really being able to, you could see even when he's off ball, see him pointing out like, no, like they're denying post entry, they're going to hang a guy. What do? Jakob, get to the slot, hit him. They're going to shift, then hit me on the high low. Like he's directing traffic. He's so impressive, even when he's not guiding all that kind of stuff. Giovanni is right. 194 watching should be 194 likes. There's more now, but hit that like button. It suggests to other people.
Hell yeah.
Pascal and Scottie, I thought were masterful in this game. Scottie, and from a like the scheme point of view, why did Schroeder and Siakam take like 16 shots and 24 shots respectively, right? So basically, the Pacers are willing to switch a ton of the actions at one point, right? And who is better at navigating these switches when digs are coming and all that kind of stuff? Pascal is the king of it. Pascal has been a switch hunter for years. He's been one of the best in the league. And here's the thing. Pascal, as far as a guy who is going to get into the middle, draw help, either take the shot or make a read down for a layup if he gets the help from the bottom out to a shooter like he did for OG late in the game.
And
he
Dennis.
And Dennis. Yeah, that one was so easy. Like they helped so aggressively from one pass away and does a really great job working through his reads like a QB, right? Like check down. Okay, what's read 1? What's read 2? What's read 3? What am I seeing from the defense? And keeping the dribble alive, not paying that much attention to his primary, working through what he has to. It's really impressive. And for Schroeder, as good as Halliburton is, and we'll talk about him and what the Raptors did to try and like bottle him up. He finished with 33 and 16. He's not good defensively. Schroeder, as far as like if the Pacers wanted to fully fulfill their like switch everything stuff, Schroeder, he blew the lay at the end of the game, of course, but he did get by Turner, right? He did get by guys quite a lot. And when it's Halliburton at the point of attack, he does such a good job of like turning the corner. So a big opportunity for Schroeder in this game. He goes 2 of 5 from 3. He's shooting like on the year, like 55% from the long mid range. He's shooting over 40% from three. The jump shot for shooter has been insane. We talked about his defense late, really fantastic. And he and Pascal really led the offense, and Scottie was masterful playing the middle between Hallie coming downhill and really making sure that the big man couldn't get up for lobs or like blocking out, right? And you could see, man, Pascal was grabbing a lot of those easy boards early on in the game, but Scottie was grabbing those really contested, tough ones to close out possessions late in the game. He gained momentum as this thing went on, and finishing at 20, 11, 4 and 4. This kind of reminds me of that Dallas game where you see Scottie, he's not the focal point of an offense, and he should be some games. He wasn't this game. Some people might, not like that, but it doesn't matter to him. He's going to impact the game regardless. We are, of course, joined by Travon Heath. How you doing, brother? What's going on?
I'm doing good. I think that was probably like the most entertaining game of the season. So
it was incredible.
Yeah.
And we won. So it's like,
hell yeah, man! And you got a haircut for this one too.
only for you.
Yeah. And you got a nice little kitchen in the background too. What you working with, bro?
I'm trying to get on your level. I saw your house and I was like, oh, gotta work harder.
So, big takeaways from this game. We know you're a big Scottie supporter. The man, he's from the island, all that good stuff, right? What do you think about this performance?
I think there's like two ways of looking at it. Like overall, like I think it was the best application of the offense Darko has shown throughout the entire year. Although a lot of it looks similar to last year. Heavier post-ups, more isolation stuff. That's just the circumstances that the team is under. I think trying to fit a square peg in a circle like doesn't really make sense. The team lacks shooting. You have one really good half-court initiator, using him in his best spots, and you saw every time he was in the post, when he had an isolation, he either created advantage or it forced a hard rotation, and it created easy shots all the time. And I think for someone that is looking towards the future and wanting to see overall growth, those lineups where Scottie and OG are with a couple bench guys can play more of those free-flowing style that Darko wants to do. Scottie and OG are winning those minutes, which bodes really well for that particular system and the future going further along ahead. Like the Pacers obviously aren't the litmus test for how well your offense is going to do, but Scottie and Pascal showed a lot of the two-man stuff that we saw last year that had throughout Scottie's entire tenure, to be honest, that we haven't really seen this year. You saw the pick and pop. We saw
little tidbits,
little sneak peeks. Yeah.
We saw the lob earlier in the game, and then the little keeper. Things like that will allow like the half-court offense to be much more functional, and there isn't this necessarily tug and pull between like whether you need to feature Scottie if he's going to be in a lot of those actions.
Can I tell you my favorite play? Actually, it wasn't like the pick and pop is obviously, I tweeted this out. I said that's a fever dream, but my favorite play was when they ran that back screen going downhill. Because they knew they were switching them. They have, Jakob has the ball on the side, like mid post, right, extended, and they run that back screen that they run a ton of. If you're running from the top, you call it chin. They run that they run it for Pascal to come off the top. Indiana's switching, and the Raptors know that. So as soon as they initiate that switch, what Scottie does is, since he knows Siakam's going to pull the guy, he exits, and Scottie immediately uses that switch to seal the man on the short side, and then it's an easy dump down for Jakob for a layup. Like, that's fantastic. That's really clever, and I don't know if that's something they drew up. I don't know if that's Scottie making a really, really making a really compelling case for a guy who just I'm reading the floor. I'm making a terrific read as a screener. I don't know, but it was super, super impressive.
That was out of a timeout, right?
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
They had they had 3 ATOs that worked really well. There was that one. And they actually ran Iverson loop for OG, which they ran last year, of course. They ran it for OG and they ran it for Pascal and scored on both of them. They used Pirtle. This is, Trey actually mentioned that there was a lot of similarities in how they attacked on the offense this season compared to last season. There's a ton of similarities in, of course, the playbook, but a lot of the high-low stuff that they worked really diligently for in this game, That was impressive. And that is for the most part new. I wrote about some of the high-low stuff they did last year as far as like what they were running with Jakob, especially through the elbow alignment. But this stuff is new. And this stuff is, in this game, certainly impressive. Malachi Flynn, we're going to talk about him. We made a couple of jokes today where,
S was, we back, baby.
After the Boston game where Malachi did have the first Boston game, for the record, he did have a pretty good game, but they lost his minutes by a bunch. You could go and see the reaction to it, of course. And I was like, yeah, you lost a ton of minutes though, and they're still losing those minutes. I'll let you take the charge on this, S. What do you think of Malachi's performance in this one?
Yeah, no, I thought he was awesome. This was undoubtedly his best game of the season. What was it? 13 points? No, what am I reading here? 14 points. Yeah, 6 of 8. He had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, like just a little bit of everything here. Ultimately, I just think like what he was looking at in terms of making the right decisions. Like there was that moment where he attacked the closeout on that Malachi Flynn 8-0 run to start the second quarter. He attacked the closeout, got downhill. That was a really impressive lay. There was a couple of impressive passes that he had in the second half too, where he like threw it into the post, whether it was to Jakob, I think it was, or maybe Scottie a couple of times. Just like great decision-making from him on all ends. And I think the defense, in my opinion, there were some moments where there was slippage. Like that's going to happen when you're a smaller guard, but ultimately like it's a huge win. And I think overall it tells you like, if there's one connective piece on the bench that works for this Raptors team, then all of it sort of comes together. And tonight it was probably Malachi who did that. You can maybe argue Otto was really good tonight too, plus 14, I think it was. I just think there was like, when there is one guy on the bench that shows up for this team, then they're so much more elevated in that second unit. You guys mentioned the Scottie plus OG minutes, but I thought Malachi was a big part of that too, because he was a secondary creator, an extra ball handler to kind of just connect different actions together. And if he can do that on a consistent basis, folks, that's good. That's good work by him. And I like it. So, hey, we'll see, man. We'll see. We're 14 games in. If he can progress to get to like this consistency all the time, I like it.
He was, I think, very impressive being amenable to how Scottie wanted to direct traffic. Because Scottie really was, Precious isn't available in this game, right? Yeah. So Scottie is taking the role of center. They're not going Scottie plus, bench and Precious is there as the big. They're going Scottie is the big, running the bench as like a point center. And you could see him working a ton of stuff, directing traffic out of the high post. And of course, this was an important factor to unlock Malachi, just as also the defense of the Pacers is an important factor as well. Yeah. You can factor that into Pascal's performance. You can factor that into Schroeder's. Man,
everybody's, honestly.
Everybody's. Yeah. But the Raptors, you play who's in front of you. This is a team that the Pacers have won a lot of games. They've played pretty good basketball this season. This is the best offense in the NBA. And I kind of want to talk about what the Raptors did to curtail that offense. You can't help it if Buddy Hield is banging 7 out of 12 threes. Tyrese Halliburton had maybe one easy look all night, and he shot 5 of 10 from downtown. Miles Turner goes 2 for 3. Obi Toppin goes 2 for 5, including the first 3, which Pascal Siakam's hand was in his face the whole time.
Yeah.
And like TJ McConnell hit his 3 that he sat on in the corner forever. You look like me at the end of the podcast last night, you guys.
Oh, come on.
Please.
It hasn't even been 24 hours.
But anyway, man, they hit a lot of threes. They shot 46% on 39 attempts. And the Raptors, what did they do to stop the Pacers? Man, here's the thing. You really saw it towards the end of the second half. Gritty defense.
Yep.
And I was really impressed with Jakob. Jakob was like, I was seeing Kevin Love versus Steph Curry in my mind. I really was. I kept seeing that, man.
That one possession on Hallie. Yeah.
And you tweeted it out, and he did it like maybe like on 4 different possessions. You know what else I saw? I saw Fred versus Vucevic play in, because that's how the Bulls beat the Raptors in the play-in game, right?
Yeah.
That was what the Bulls did as their adjustment. They're like, okay, Pascal is killing it in the post. Pascal, I think he finished with 33 in that play-in game. We need to move the offense elsewhere. So they hang a guy, they start fronting. And when you switch Fred out, like Vucevic, Fred can't make a post entry over Vuce. He can't make it over a lot of primary defenders. So it's like the ball with Fred above the break. And man, Hallie did a really good job navigating that stuff. I think he faced like maybe like 15, between 15 and 22, 15 and 21 possessions where they're switching everything across the top.
Damn.
And they did like a fantastic job of sticking with him. Different guys at different times. He's one of the best offensive talents in the NBA. He still goes nuts. 33 and 16. Shout out to our nameless friend who constantly calls Indiana an assist farm. I don't know if 16 I don't know if it felt inflated to you guys. Some plays I was like, wow. But when he brought up, he's like, wow, Hallie's at 15. It surprised me a little bit. And then we also, after that switching, just towards the end of the second quarter, they start blitzing a bunch, right? And they just want to give Hallie a bunch of different looks. We see teams do this with Luka a lot too, because Luka is such a cerebral player. He's so good at seeing rotation, beating it, and making those proactive reads. And so you have to kind of switch everything up. So the Raptors were constantly toggling between switching and playing straight up, playing like up to touch, playing deep drop, like all this kind of stuff. And some of that was due to who was the roller, but some of that is just like the Raptors want to be able to impose their will possession to possession. I thought they did an awesome job on Tyrese. If anyone else wants to talk about the defense, maybe focus on OG. The floor is there for whoever.
Like the Pacers run at such a, like an alarming pace. The fact that OG was able to stick with him, and you could see in the game, like
hard to clip,
visibly tired. He was visibly tired. They had to give him a breather much earlier than they usually do. Overall, like he's one of the best defenders in the NBA. I thought what was really interesting was when they went small and went to Scottie at the 5, how much more difficult it was to hit the lob or hit the roller going in, because Scottie was able to blow up a lot of those actions.
You're on it, man. You're on it.
Yeah, that was nice.
As the bottom defender, and it made it extremely difficult when Hallie was getting downhill, because earlier on in the game there, although like Jakob, great rim protector, isn't the fastest player, he was able to exploit that either to get a lay or to finish it with Turner, and Turner was cooking earlier in the game. And like once you made that adjustment, like the Raptors like basically turned their water off and took like an extreme part of their offense away.
I see a comment as far as like OG's defense. What stood out to me is that OG can obviously stick Tyrese in isolation, but that when they are playing lock and trail, OG is able to get right onto Tyrese's hip. He can get through the screen sometimes, and he always keeps that hand up to block the passing lane, which this is also like those OG plus Scottie and bench lineups where Scottie's playing the 5 and the roll, and that like you don't even necessarily need to tag. Really important aspect of that is that OG is on the hip. If Halliburton is going left, you're complicating that push lob, right? And if he's going to his right, you're on that hip and you're keeping your hand up to block that pass over the shoulder and to make sure that there's no like pick and pop available. And that means that Scottie can, and also you're really creeping down Tyrese's back. So that means that Scottie has to focus less on finding the middle between, as far as like the ball handler and the roller. He just kind of gets to focus on like completely icing out the roller. And those two work together to do like, man, a really, really impressive job. I thought OG's technique was good. I thought that he was sticking the guy who is leading the most robust NBA offense we have, and a guy who did fantastic. I thought he was really great in this game. I was so impressed. And Scottie working from the bottom, a defensive playmaker through and through.
Yeah.
Came out with 4 steals.
That's the vision, right? Like that is the vision when you look at him as a defensive player. It's like he's going to be able to blow up actions with his length, be that help side guy to just like deter a bunch of different things. You guys mentioned the low man stuff. I think like ultimately, if you're looking at like vision, like what's the future? What's this going to look like? That stretch in the second quarter when it was Scottie, OG, Boucher, Otto and Malachi. Like that's like an ideal fit around what
That's
this
your
team.
future starting five.
Yeah, exactly. Run that exact same team next season. But like that's the ideal type, the archetype of players that could fit around Scottie ideally. We'll see. Like they're obviously going to incorporate different stuff later on, but like just in terms of what he can be on the defensive end for you, blowing up tons of actions. It was awesome. I want to mention, just Sav is bringing up that like he gets burned. OG gets burned on a lot of screens. OG is probably excellent at navigating through screens, getting over, ducking under, whatever it might be. And when you're going after a guy like Halliburton, who is quick, who is agile, like he's not like the most bursty guy, but he can explode through a seam very, very quickly. And I actually think that OG did a great job, like you said, of locking and trailing, always putting a hand up there. And it's not just about the shot with Hallie, it's about the passing lane and getting a hand up in there too. So like, yes, you're going to get burned on screens. Everybody gets burned on screens, but it's about how you're able to recover. And OG is probably like in the top tier when it comes to recovery.
Basically, the big thing, you're not going to stop one of the elite players from getting their numbers. Like Hallie came into this game averaging 25 and 12, right? Or maybe that's his averages after this game. But you want a point of attack defender who can guide that guy into your preferred scheme. And it never felt like Tyrese was really able to break the scheme outside of shooting over top of it. Like, yeah, they switch everything over the top, and Tyrese hits like a 30-footer on like a strange pickup point too, just boom, like bombs away. That's super impressive. But OG was able to guide him into the type of scheme that they want. And I thought that was really impressive. I was really impressed with what OG was able to do tonight. Because like let's read out his stats. I mean, Tyrese is a guy who he shoots 46% from 3 on 8 attempts per game. He shoots 52% from the field. He's averaging 25. Shoots like 93% from the free throw line. 12 assists per game. Almost a 6-to-1 assist to turnover. The proof is in the pudding. The Pacers have the best offense in the NBA. Trey talked about it. They're running at like a torrid pace all the time. There's always actions to preoccupy the weak side. There's always like really, really impressive play going on for the primary action. The Raptors did a hell of a job, man. Like, I don't want to nitpick these guys. They stopped. And like, here's the thing too. Maybe I can go look it up, but what was the Pacers half court? Like, what did they get in this game? I'm going to go poke around. But as far as like, I think they're average like 106 points as far as their half court offense. And in this game, the Raptors gave up a ton of turnovers early, helped fuel their transition offense. And you look at the end of the game, Indiana finishes at 108 in the half court, marginally above their average. And their average is obviously a composite average of they play like the best defense in the NBA, the Magic, and that is lower. And then they play a team like, the Raptors played Detroit, and they have a game that's like 127 or something, right? It's just really, really impressive to see them defend like this. Kind of, Trey, I want to get your thoughts on Pascal since you missed our Pascal conversation a little bit. So let's get you in there for that.
I think it was his best game of the season. I know like the Mavs game was next level, but what I really liked out of this game is the passing opportunities that came out of a lot of the post actions. The Pacers obviously made a decision that they were going to slow him down. They came really hard on his post ups. Those led to either he was making a quick decision, stopping on a dime, scoring from the mid range, and when his mid range is actually working, it opens up everything for his entire game, similar to like earlier, beginning of last season. And those passing attempts led to Scottie getting closer back into the game, getting easier attempts. That ATO that they ran doesn't happen unless Pascal is killing teams. The keeper that Scottie has they don't overreact to Pascal coming down if Pascal isn't playing as well as he was.
You spit.
So it just opened up everyone's game, and you have to kind of make a concerted effort. If you want to be competitive, if you want to win, you have to give him the ball and let him dictate the offense, because Scottie's a great player. If his touch around the rim was good today, he still finishes around 24-25 today.
Yeah.
You have to ignite both of them together. They win their minutes together by a lot. There isn't a need to necessarily stagger or keep them apart. Create actions around them that work, and ideally have shooting that manifests better offense.
Here's a good question. Micah Zion says, "Who would y'all give the chain to? Who gets the chain tonight?" S is gonna say Malachi.
Yeah, give it to Malik, dog. Okay, Pascal's gonna get 1,000,001 different chains this year. All right, Scottie's gonna get his chains. Schroeder and Darko pretty much have a chain agreement here. I think it
Are you
should be
gonna quote
Malachi.
your favorite for Pascal getting so many chains? Are you gonna quote your favorite rapper?
Oh my god, they call me Channing Tatum.
Yeah.
Oh man, no, he's not my favorite rapper. Don't call that. But also, I think it should go to Malachi. Actually, I'm kind of curious to see who it goes to because there's a lot of great performances tonight. I don't know. I kind of wanted to go to Malachi, man. Those 8 straight points in the second quarter to bring him back. That was nice. That was cool.
Yeah, the game was gonna go out of hand.
Yeah, I know it's just 8 points, and Samson's like, oh god, we're really gonna give the chain for 8 points.
I'll say this. Pascal's gotten, we're 14 games in, like 1 chain. Maybe.
Yeah, well,
I don't remember.
Wait, but have they started? Did they start the chain in game 1? I don't think they did.
Yeah, they did.
Did they?
Yeah, the chain was always
The
there.
chain
man.
has been there. Okay,
They've been handing out the chain.
Okay, fair enough.
And here, just to circle back on the as far as like the half court offense thing. So in this game, the Raptors held Indiana's half court offense to, I think, their 8th worst half court performance, which is either their 7th best or their 8th worst, whichever one. It's around 108, and they shot 48% from 3 in this game.
Mm-hmm.
They averaged 39% on the season. So you held them around the middle of the pack while they also shot way above their heads. There's some games, I looked at the game logs, where Indiana, their half-court offense, is clipping like above 120 repeatedly, man. Like
Dude,
they're getting way up there. So the Raptors, they informed the shot chart, took the best shot the Pacers could give offensively, took like 48% from 3 on high volume, which is what the Pacers used to beat the Raptors scheme at times, and did like a really impressive job. And they scored with them to beat them, and through a variety of offensive approaches. I thought this game was just like awesome, man.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah, go nuts.
Okay, so I this is kind of pulling on a thread that Trey said when he first got into this, where like, okay, when Pascal was on the court and it was the starters, they were running, the post ups, the isolations for him. They were running very typical to what they were running last year. But with Scottie and OG, it was like, hey, this new vision, new style, we can play this as well. It kind of worked in tandem, right? It worked hand in hand. Both were very successful tonight. Yes, I know it's the Pacers defense. Wanted to ask you guys though, how do you find a successful way to balance that and maybe manage that against teams that are better defensively? Because they have seemingly struggled to do that against better defensive teams. Orlando is a clear example of that because it's fresh in our mind. But like Minnesota, Boston, Philly, right? There's been numerous times where it's like, I don't know.
Something crazy?
Yeah.
They had a good half-court performance against Orlando last night. They just had
what was the number?
I think it was like 103.
Wow.
Okay, hell yeah. Wow, that's actually surprising.
And I know people will get on me for liking Pascal's game, but Pascal's post-up offense against Orlando was extremely effective.
It was,
like
but
he sliced and diced them.
I think the issue was like they weren't creating enough advantages out of the post up because one, there was just not a lot of cutting that was happening around him. I feel like the ball movement, maybe the player movement, you know what I mean? But like
he had like 8 assists early. Not early, but he finished with 8 assists. He was driving the offense early on. He only took 10 shots. He scored 16 points.
Yeah.
And like Schroeder, the way that Orlando was playing is like they wanted to keep the ball in Schroeder's hands, and they wanted to keep they want to maintain. They just want to maintain the ball in Schroeder's hands, keep it there. Schroeder shot really well from the floor, and they Schroeder, the jumper, as I said it before, like 55% on his mid-range jumper, north of 40 from 3. The jumper has been insane for Schroeder to start the year. Yeah. They actually found a lot of stuff that worked. It was the fact that, honestly, Orlando just bludgeoned them in the possession battle. They had, over 20 more possessions in that game. Yeah. So, Lewis wrote this piece today where he talked about how the Raptors, on aggregate, were starting out every single game with, on average, a 9-0 advantage because they would, based on their points per possession on a possession, they had like 9 more possessions than the other team every single game, which is, a 9-point lead over the course of the game, right? And they found their way to it. The Magic just bludgeoned the hell out of the Raptors. Turnovers, sloppiness, offensive rebounds, whatever ended up being, that was how Orlando won. In the half court, the Raptors have been climbing, and a lot of it is that a huge game against Detroit obviously helped swing the numbers. It was like 127. But also, it is that line of demarcation where you're like, okay, Scottie is figuring out how to lift these bench units, which is by far the most impressive thing. And something a little less impressive, but also very important, is that Pascal is in these in-between units with typically Jakob and Schroeder and then 2 other bench guys. And he's getting a lot of like isolations on switches or post-ups, and he's creating like really great looks repeatedly. I went through all of his assists today. Advantaged assists. When you give your teammate a really easy look with your motion or your passing talent. Yeah. Pascal, 72% for the season. Really, really high number. When he carves out, when he makes that pass, even he didn't get an assist on it, right? But you clip the play, he spies out above the break. They get the swing pass to Otto in the corner. It's a made 3. He's being proactive. His reads out of the post are really good. He sees where the doubles are coming from. And it's important that when Scottie's off the floor, that they can lean into that. And I think that's something that they found works. They've also gone to the post more often in early offense when they can. And they've also done more mismatch hunting. And all of this kind of stuff you can see correlates with a steady rise, like a very steady rise in the offensive numbers.
Also, steady rise in Pascal's usage. Like
Pascal's usage has been like on the rise for sure. Those 2 things correlate though.
Yeah,
like it shouldn't. Scottie's been the Raptors' best player so far this season. I don't want to argue that or anything, but Pascal has been balling the hell out offensively and just completely lifting these bereft offensive lineups with his ability to just continuously cave defenses in on themselves and make the reads, because he is feasting and beasting on anybody. There's a lot of people talk about how he can't do it against X defender or Y defender. He's done it like against everybody.
Hey, obviously. He did it against the Celtics. You mentioned Orlando. I thought he did a good job too. Like I ultimately think like, yes, they sucked defensively last night too, which was a big thing. Like they were terrible.
Bad.
I wonder, like, how are we going to find a more consistent balance? Like, yes, there's going to be nights like this where it's super, super successful. Maybe to your point, they are finding that balance. It's like, as they keep progressing, there's going to be this perfect equilibrium between the two. I don't know.
Let me get to your point. You wanted to give Malachi the chain. Yeah. He created the equilibrium in this game. The Raptors every game look for a guy who will provide offensive punch to be a stopgap, and coming in and giving you 14 points on 75% shooting, and he had 1 turnover in this game, 2 assists, and there were also times where like he moved the ball along and the Raptors found something a little bit more fruitful later on in the possession. That's what the Raptors need. They need one of those, and they've won a couple games where it's kind of not guard play, but Precious pops off, right?
Yeah.
Like they should have won that Boston game. Trey brought this up. Scottie got the quick blow in the 4th quarter in this game. Darko yanks him. He's been playing for a long time. And what did he do this time? He burned a timeout to get Scottie back into the game. That is important. And then also against Boston, a game like I think they beat Boston by 17 points in Siakam's minutes, and they lost Siakam's on the bench minutes by like 22 or 23 points. That game, as far as the approach and the play, they would have won if they got their regular rotations. And in this game, you could see like Darko is learning with this team. Yeah. He's growing along, and it's not perfect, of course. And the Pacers are not the baseline because they're a really bad defense, but they found baseline against a Celtics team. They found and they certainly underperformed against the Magic. Like, of course, I hated watching that game. I hated that night. I gotta be honest. It was not good. But I'll tell you this much. They're finding their way. I don't know what the ceiling is. I know we probably all have an idea of like it's the sixth seed or lower maybe.
Mhm.
But Darko, the ATOs have slowly improved. The offense has slowly been improving. Of course, that correlates with Pascal's usage, but things are progressing in a positive way.
Rotations I thought were excellent tonight too. Like just like
Yep.
what lineups they were staggering and throwing out there, I thought was really good. Maybe that's because of Precious not playing. Like that removing that factor makes it a little bit easier to sort out who will and who won't play. But yeah, I mean, I thought this was a pretty great Darko game as far as like, the narrative goes of like, oh, Darko, so far, hey, like you said, he's learning. And I think that needs to be said.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I think one thing that's missed also, like within Raptors, like schedule has been very difficult. And like they've played most of the large teams in the NBA very early in the season, and they've struggled. They played the Sixers,
played the big guys.
They played Orlando. They played Minnesota. They played Boston, which is very, very difficult. I think like overall with the offense, you're going to have more opportunities where Scottie's or Pascal in certain lineups are going to be able to hold up as the big, which will create more passing lanes, create more opportunities, and ideally Gary's jumper positively regresses so that he can be inserted in some of those
and his free throws apparently. So
let's stay there. Gary had the big game versus Detroit. He's had maybe like 3 decent games this season. Gary somehow a plus 14 in this game, which is kind of funny. Gary rhymes with Carey, and he certainly was. Here's the thing. I kind of want the round table, the early thoughts on Gary's season so far. We'll start with US. Or no, you leaned in, Trey. Let's go with you. You're ready. You're ready to rock and roll.
Not good.
Good.
Obviously, like he has too many shots, too much data to show that like he's not a bad shooter. Like it's gonna positively regress. And I will say,
big data guy, big math guy.
Yeah.
Last year he played poorly to start the season as well. The one concern I probably would have is that in the preseason you saw that he looked like an improved decision maker, making a lot better passes even earlier in the season. Today, obviously, like it looked as though that he wasn't necessarily looking to find the low man, move the ball, and actually get into secondary stuff. He was gunning, trying to work his way and get his shot back. But that I think eventually that is going to fall, and he's going to, I think, eventually start some games where they need a punch.
So I was prior to the season a Gary, because I had said before the season, like you're in the experiment. Let Pascal go nuts, or sorry, not Pascal. Let Scottie go nuts as the point guard. Like we talked about our expectations for the stat lines before the season. Yours, Trey, was very large for Pascal, but I saw a dip in usage, and I thought, no, like they're probably gonna rock and roll with Scottie more.
Yeah,
and I thought that Schroeder would kind of guide bench minutes more often. That hasn't been the case. Like Schroeder is almost always paired with one of these guys, right?
Yep.
And it's been interesting to see how it's played out. The Raptors have had a super tough schedule to start, but Schroeder has had some really like some staple games, some really impressive stuff. But I still wonder, like I can't help feeling, like what if Gary comes in, as Trey mentioned, like believe in the data, believe in the track record, and you kind of run with like more Scottie on ball stuff. Because like Pascal, his usage has grown, but Pascal's could dip relative to the latest stretch. That would probably be fine. Schroeder's could certainly dip. And for a guy who's been really good in the pick and roll, like Barnes, and a guy who makes like really great reads on ball, it might make sense to like keep Jakob out there to be like this huge screener. See if you can get Scottie an edge from time to time. And especially if teams are just going to switch it, just run from like stagger the offense out. So it's like Scottie runs a pick and roll. Maybe they do a push switch, whatever. Scottie immediately automatics into a DHO with Gary. And like Gary's guy runs over. They've already switched. Are they going to switch it again? Then Scottie can have a post up and like beast and feast. There's like lots of stuff you can do. And that's not even talking about like the ideal situation, which is Scottie gets a step, starts going downhill. And we all know what that looks like. That looks like a lot of points. That looks like a lot of success. And, he's been fantastic in the pick and roll so far this year, against different looks as well. So Who knows if that happens? But it's been interesting. Schroeder has overperformed,
Yep.
I
Yep.
believe.
Absolutely.
And I still don't mind people wondering if, like, hey, maybe we give Scottie more of the ball. Because why not, right? That's kind of how I feel about it.
I
Other
agree.
thoughts?
No, I
Other
agree.
thoughts?
I agree. Just on Gary, by the way, I feel like this is sort of who he is. Maybe not the free throw shooting, but like he relies so much on the jump shot that if that jump shot isn't going, there's just not a lot that he can get to be an impactful offensive player. He can be a solid team defender in the sense that he can stay within a scheme, but individually one-on-one, you're not asking him to, lock up anybody or stay with a man. He falls asleep off ball. That happened multiple times in a couple of different games. I think even in Orlando, there were a couple possessions where you're like, what is happening here off ball? So with Gary, you're relying on the jump shot being the calling card for what he is. And when that swings, so does the pendulum, the vibes of Gary Trent Jr. You're just hoping and praying that that will eventually swing back the other direction. And I think to Trey's point, it will ultimately at some point this season. He will start to shoot better. He will start to make his free throws and it'll look a little bit better off of the bench. You might, instead of Malachi being that sort of stopgap, if you will, it's going to be Gary. That could be that stopgap for them. I think going into the season, they probably thought Gary could be like a sixth starter for them, and that hasn't been the case so far. I think tonight, to kind of shoot him some bail a little bit, they did operate with him sort of as the sixth starter because he was like, it was him, Scottie, OG, and then Malachi and Boucher. And like, you can sell me on the idea that Gary's a starter technically in that group, although he's coming off of the bench. So I don't know. I just think like, it'll happen. He'll get back to his shooting touch and like we'll have a different conversation in February when he's shooting 40% from 3 and doing things like that,
We have in the chat they're talking about vibes, and that's like Scottie is responsible for it. Not because Scottie's like a happy guy who is like imbuing happiness to everybody,
He
but
likes
because
dogs.
sure, but it's because Scottie has made a leap. And even in the games where the jumper isn't like popping the hell off, even in the games where he's getting switched on and not really able to initiate a bunch of half court offense, he still finds his way to 20, 12, 4, and 4. And this is the stuff that on the lowest days will carry everybody through the season. What we look back at as far as the process, that Orlando game, and I say, yeah, believe it or not, the half court offense was good and they found a ton of success with Pascal. Guess what? People have seen a lot of Pascal and they've seen what they perceive to be the ceiling of that. They don't really care. And like, that's the truth of it. What's new? What's exciting? Scottie is maybe going to be like, at this point, if you just fast forward his stats to All-Star season, he's going to be an All-Star at 22 years old.
Yep.
And it's cool that Pascal has really picked up his play and that these guys are doing a good job, especially we talked about those two-man actions, working together. It's unfortunate that a lot of these come without Jakob on the floor. That is tough. But Scottie has really helped helm with his play because as far as like the vibes, nobody really knows how it's going with the team. But the fan base has a lot of consternation and anxiety, and Scottie calms a lot of that and excites everybody in the right ways. I'm so impressed with him. Even if it's a so-so game, he's just there. He's present. He's impressive. And I hope he gets more of the ball going forward. I wonder how they really like design this offense and make it work. If anybody in chat has any questions before we get out of here, feel free. But Trey S, any hot takes from this game? Any stray thoughts that you want to get off your chest?
I just want to say no Grady Dick. I think no Grady Dick, right? Yeah, no Grady Dick, no DMP. I don't know. I don't want to say that's like a like, hey, watch out for this type of thing, but just interesting. He's obviously been struggling a little bit to make his shots. I think, to your point, and I think Lewis tweeted this out a little bit ago, but once the confidence in the shot has gone, he's stopped doing some of the little things that he was succeeding in when the shot wasn't falling. So I think it might be a confidence thing. Don't know. Maybe you guys can kind of throw out some thoughts of like how he can maybe get back to that. But yeah, just an interesting point. He didn't play tonight.
Hit shots, man. That's the big thing. I talked about this on not the last podcast, but the one before it,
Me?
where Grady. Oh, hey, Lewis, what's going on, man? Where Grady, as far as kind of really providing impact, that wasn't so much the expectation. And expecting the 13th overall pick to give you positive minutes is wrong.
Yeah.
Always. We just played the Pacers. The Pacers have Jarris Walker, who was the 7th overall pick.
Did not play.
DNP has had a lot of those this year. I don't think he's played as many minutes as Grady has. Grady was supposed to be kind of buried behind an improved and deeper rotation of the Raptors. We all talked about a potential Raptors rotation, and we said, oh, if Grady comes in as the 9th or 10th man, like, we're in the money. That's a really big deal. And there were some games he was 7th because things weren't going that well and because of the unforeseen, complications that Koloko is dealing with. It's been tough. He started out super strong. Little things king galore, doing all of that stuff. But at some point, the shots have to drop. I have no worries about him finding it eventually. It's game 15 of his rookie season. A DNP is perfectly okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if the G League fixes anything he's doing. I hope that, as far as I hope he does the double headers. I hope he gets extra reps at the G League when applicable. And that's kind of that's the Grady situation from my point of view. What do you think, Trey?
Micah just asked, who do you think the best player from the Bulls will be? I think it'll be Scottie. Scottie's going to dominate again. He dominated against the Bulls last time they played. Sorry, go ahead, Trey.
I'm not really concerned. You also have to consider the team that they were playing. They put so much pressure on you defensively that it would be hard in this game to have Grady play a significant amount of minutes. Just the fact that Halliburton, with OG, he was still able to get downhill a large amount of time. And anytime the Raptors showed an inch of a rotation, buddy, he'll hit a 3. So having Grady on the court, I don't think would have made sense. They're going to be easier games for him to play. I think he's probably going to play against the Bulls. I doubt that we have to worry about a Alex Caruso 3 or a draw. He's going to have 30.
I mean, hey, they had to worry about it last time,
But there's going to be easier games and easier matchups for him. And he shot the ball well in college. He shot the ball well in high school. So that will eventually come. As long as he continues to show a willingness to shoot, I'm okay with playing him in games where it makes sense.
Yeah. That's such a strong point to make, Trey. Not only because you look at the names as he would have been guarding Buddy, Obi, Bruce Brown, maybe Tyrese on a switch, Matherin, Nwora, McConnell, and Jalen Smith. I feel like any one of those guys could have given him hell. And they did a really, really great job as far as in this game, scheming and playing the defense as best they could and handling, obviously, a very strong shooting night from the Pacers. A lot of what they tried to do, it probably would have fell off a cliff if Grady was out there. That's the truth of it, right? Probably would have fell off a cliff. And that is totally fine. That is classic. You just got into the league stuff. Grady, 15 games. This is a very tiny part of what will be, I suspect, a very successful career. He's got to work on his body. He's got to hit shots. He has to start reading the game better, especially when he's on ball. He's really late and really slow as far as some of the passes he likes to make with a live dribble. Yeah, man, something I'm paying attention to. Bryce Diamond says, I'd love to hear Caitlin Cooper share her thoughts on Pascal and Scottie playing together this year. Caitlin and I believe, are going live tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern. We'll be talking on this channel about this game and about the season overall. So if you want to hear the world's best NBA analyst, Caitlin Cooper will be on the show.
Yeah, I was wondering why you got us schmucks tonight instead of Caitlin, but makes sense. Yeah.
Oh, we have another one from Bryce Diamond, which is a really great question. It's the Hawkins versus Grady thing. So Hawkins has shot the 3 pretty well, but he's 2 years older than Grady. He doesn't really do anything besides shoot the 3 super well. He makes a couple reads out of dribble handoff actions. He can attack the top foot in the closeout, but Grady does a lot of stuff on ball way better than Hawkins does. Grady can rebound better. Grady's bigger. Grady's younger. If in 2 years Grady can't give you what Hawkins is giving you now, huge L for the Raptors, certainly. But I still like Grady as a player. Like I talked to Shamit Dua before the season talking about the Pelicans and the Raptors, and he was like, yeah, I'm excited for Hawkins, but all he does is shoot. Like Grady's a way better prospect. So
yeah,
I mean, even the Pelicans people who should be excited about Hawkins and his early ability to help them out and give them offensive punch as they're missing like 4 main guys for their team.
Yep.
He has hit shots earlier than Grady has, but there's a lot of ancillary skills that will help propel Grady to a more impactful NBA career. And that's kind of, yeah, Stevie says, I can't believe Magic took Howard over both. We were in there, man. We were at the Raptors Republic draft party. We were like, get Howard. What the world? Geez, it was, yeah, that was crazy. Any final thoughts from you guys before we get out of here?
What do you guys think I should do for film room? Just throwing it out there.
Malik, your son.
Should I do Malachi? Should I do the? Okay, I'll do the son. Why do I always get the son for the small point guard? Everybody, yeah.
You played basketball with Malachi. That's your guy. You had the interview, and you were like then you told him you're like, yeah, you're good, Malachi. If I was as tall as you, maybe I could have been something in
low
the
key
league,
though. Yeah, I think so. Still, I think I could have hooped. Yeah, maybe help the Raptors off the bench a little bit, but
Yeah. The Terry Rozier tweet about Osama bin Laden, except about you. If you had been taller,
I have no idea what that tweet was.
Really?
What was the tweet? No.
Terry Rozier tweeted out, Osama should have hooped instead of killing people.
Oh, no way.
Tall as hell. Yeah. It's like a classic tweet.
Oh, I didn't know that. I didn't know it was Terry Rozier that said that. I've seen that before, but I didn't know it was Terry Rozier. That's funny.
It's fantastic. I'll just say for everybody watching right now, like the video, it helps suggest it to other people. And I'll take just a moment to update everybody on my situation. So it's now deleted, but during last night's episode, I was at Toronto Metropolitan University talking to students and then watching the game with them. Afterwards, during the live stream, right towards the end, I suffered a seizure. I had never had that happen before. I've gone through testing at the hospital. Everything so far has come back good. And I don't think anybody should worry. If I'm about to die, I'll send a tweet out or something. If I have some sort of like that terrible brain disease or something like that, I still have to go get MRIs and stuff like that. But I'm okay. And my apologies for anybody who saw that, because I had a lot of people reach out to me. It is probably kind of traumatizing. That's why it's deleted. So I'm good. Big thank you to S and Trey, because I was really nervous about doing this. I thought it would be important to kind of test my brain by putting, the flow of consciousness out here and do it live and stuff like that. So thanks for being here, fellas, just in case I was like, fuck, can't really do it.
Yeah,
thanks to everybody. Thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to everybody who reached out. I just had like a ton of people. So it's I'm just happy to be talking Raptors. I don't know if what happened to me was stress related, but you guys listening, me talking about hoops, my friends, none of that stresses me out in the slightest. So S, Trey, chat, anybody listening, thank you for letting me get on the soapbox a little bit. Okay.
Can we just acknowledge the fact that it's literally 24 hours later and the man is doing the exact same thing he was doing yesterday?
He asked us
and making jokes about it.
And
well, we were cracking jokes like 40 minutes after it happened, to be quite honest with you. That's how I cope.
You were cracking jokes, and then we were like, okay, I guess we can start making fun of it already. I don't know what's going on.
You want to normalize it, because like when I was just there at the hospital and I was like, and the doctors were taking it serious, I was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like this. Like if the doctor was like cracking jokes, I'd feel way better. But he's like, oh, he's watching the video. He looks freaked the hell out. Because usually you just tell them your symptoms. Yeah. But I was like, hey.
You had video evidence. Yeah.
Yeah. Nuts. Yeah. But anyway, Top Shot Tesla says, I thought you were pro-labor. take your time off. I get it. I've already talked to RR. RR would let me take like 5 months off if I need. They would let me take whatever off and still pay me if I needed it. But like I said, this isn't a stressor. I'm just talking basketball with my friends. Thank you to everybody for hopping in, and everybody who reached out. Hell yeah, Trey, for us, for all the listeners, whether it's live or whether it's on your little walk or just late night, whatever. Maybe you're going to sleep to it. I hope you enjoyed this. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night. Have a blessed day and goodbye.